Let go of your attachment to being right, and suddenly your mind is more open.
What you call control is, in truth, the most elegant prison fear has ever built. We spend our lives believing that the harder we push, the closer we get to what we want. But it's actually the opposite. Life withdraws in the face of tension. The universe closes when met with insistence. Nothing flows when you try to command the flow. What you keep chasing isn't running away from you. It's simply waiting for the moment you stop fighting the current. There's a subtle truth that few people notice. The more you push, the more life resists. The more force you use, the further you move away from the lightness needed to receive. From an early age, you were taught that success is the reward for effort, that love is the prize for persistence, and that peace is the result of a well-controlled plan. But that's the great illusion of our time. The same force that drives you is the one that traps you. The desire to control is born from the fear of losing, and that fear is what creates distance between you and what's already yours. We try to shape life with our hands. We suffocate what's light and call it determination. But life doesn't bend to rigidity. It reveals itself through surrender. There's something deeply powerful about simply allowing. True power isn't about holding on tighter, but about letting go with awareness. It's in that space between effort and surrender that the invisible starts to act. The universe doesn't respond to what you ask for, it responds to what you are. When fear takes the lead, energy gets blocked. You say you want results, but you vibrate scarcity. You want love, but you project neediness. You want freedom, but you live chained to your own expectations. Energy doesn't lie, and the funny thing is, the more you try to speed things up, the slower everything seems to move. Time refuses to serve those who are at war with their own rhythm. Because time, like life, is not an enemy, but a mirror. It reflects the exact inner state of the one who lives it. When there's desperation, time feels heavy. When there's trust, it dissolves. The secret was never about doing more, but about being different. To breathe where you once suffocated, to trust where you once doubted. There's a quiet intelligence guiding everything, even when you don't understand it. Life doesn't want to be controlled, it wants to be understood. And understanding is born the moment you stop demanding immediate answers. It's there, in the space between what you want and what you need, that the miracle happens. When you allow, life flows. When you let go, it aligns. Not as a reward for giving up, but as a reflection of your new vibration. Surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the awareness that what's real never needs to be forced to exist. In the next few minutes, something in you will begin to unravel. It won't be a miracle, it'll be a return. A return to the part of you that always knew life was lighter than your mind made it seem. The reminder that nothing that's truly yours needs to be forced to stay. That what's real never needs to be chased to happen. Everything you seek is also seeking you. It's just waiting for you to release your fear so it can find you. This video isn't about running faster. It's about stopping the race. Because it's in the silence of those who trust that life finally starts to move. When you let go, the universe comes closer. When you trust, it responds. And it's right there, where effort stops and energy flows, that the extraordinary begins. Control is an illusion dressed as safety, a mask the ego wears to protect itself from the unexpected, as if chaos were a threat instead of life's own language. From early on, you learned to cling, to prove yourself, to build certainties so you wouldn't feel the fear of the unknown. But there comes a point when control starts controlling you. The force that once supported you begins to oppress you, and you realize you're suffocating in the very air you're trying to breathe. Control is a mirror reflecting fear disguised as courage. You call it discipline, the world calls it success, but deep down, you know it's exhaustion. There's an ancient tiredness in trying to hold on to what was never yours to hold. And the tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. There's a part of you that knows this, but still insists on fighting the inevitable. It's the part that believes peace will only come when everything is in order. But life doesn't obey orders. It follows flow. You try to control time, but time doesn't bend to anxiety. You try to control love, but love shrinks when you fear losing it. You try to control success, but success fades when born from desperation. The truth is, control doesn't protect, it only delays the collapse. The universe doesn't negotiate with rigidity, it only moves with surrender. And there's something painfully honest about realizing that while you're busy trying to keep everything under control, life is standing back, watching, waiting for you to get tired. When control falls, the soul finally breathes. And that's when the invisible begins to act, not as punishment, but as a reminder that nothing grows inside clenched fists. There's a kind of wisdom that only comes through loss, when the ground disappears and you realize you're still whole. Life wants to show you that. But first, it has to break the part of you that thinks it already knows. Some days, resistance is what keeps you standing, but on others, it's what stops you from moving forward. You mistake strength for hardness, but they're opposites. Hardness is fear turned to stone. Strength is flow that has learned to trust. Life isn't punishing you when things fall apart. It's freeing you from what was never meant to stay. But you still fight. You try to rebuild ruins with the same hands that should be open to the new. You think you're failing, but in truth, you're being pruned. And pruning hurts, but it's what allows you to bloom. There's a part of the soul that only awakens when everything you thought was essential begins to collapse. And it's in that emptiness that the miracle happens, because emptiness is the cradle of what hasn't yet been born. People believe peace comes when everything is resolved, but true peace comes when you realize nothing will ever be completely resolved. Life is a series of surrenders and returns. Suffering is born in the space between what you try to control and what life insists on showing you. You're not the failure you fear becoming. You're simply trying to protect yourself from life's unpredictability. But the irony is that unpredictability is the only constant. Every time you try to dominate the flow, you move further from it. Every plan that refuses to work is the universe redirecting you. But the ego doesn't get that. It screams, it struggles, it demands answers. And life, patiently, just watches. Because it knows understanding doesn't come before surrender. The mind believes letting go means giving up, but the heart knows letting go means trusting. And trusting is the most courageous act a human being can take, because trust requires presence, and presence disarms fear. When you trust, time loses its power to intimidate you. Tomorrow stops being a threat and becomes a promise again. Life starts finding you, not because you forced it, but because you made room for it. Everything that chases you gets tired. Everything that belongs to you finds you. The energy of surrender is so magnetic that even what seemed lost comes back in ways you never expected. Trust isn't naive, it's sacred. It's saying to the universe, I align. I no longer resist. But trusting also hurts, because to trust, you must face the fear of nothingness. You have to face the silence, the place where the mind can't reach and the heart doesn't yet understand. That's where real faith is born. Not the faith that expects rewards, but the one that rests even without guarantees. It's there you realize life was never against you. It was always trying to teach you to stop fighting it. What hurts isn't the fall. It's the attachment to what's falling apart. When you let go, the ground feels softer, the air lighter, and time starts flowing again. The universe is a silent mirror. It doesn't judge, it reflects. Everything you emit, it returns. If you vibrate fear, it gives you reasons to fear. If you vibrate trust, it gives you reasons to keep going. Life doesn't understand words, it understands energy. That's why nothing changes when you talk about faith, but vibrate in doubt. Energetic coherence is the language of manifestation. When your actions, thoughts, and emotions align, reality responds. Life isn't deaf, it's just selective. It only answers those who are truly ready to listen. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't come from the body, but from the soul. The exhaustion of trying to write every line of your own destiny. You try to predict, to control, to anticipate, to protect. But some things just don't fit in the map you drew. The unpredictable is what keeps life alive. And when you finally get tired, when you stop fighting what is, something changes. That's when flow returns. What was an obstacle becomes a path. What was pain becomes translation. Because what looked like punishment was actually the process of healing. You start to realize that true power doesn't come from making the universe obey you, but from learning to dance with it. Everything that slipped away was only leading you to something greater. Every delay was hidden synchronicity. Every loss was liberation. Suffering isn't in the circumstances, it's in resistance. When resistance dissolves, truth emerges. And the truth is simple. Nothing that's truly yours can ever be lost. The love that's yours stays. The path that's yours reveals itself. The time that's yours will find you. And then, for the first time, the mind goes quiet. The silence that once scared you now becomes a shelter. You understand there's no rush, because nothing is late. There's no lack, because what's essential never left. Life, once distant, now feels close. Not because it changed, but because you changed the way you see it. All you ever wanted was peace, and peace was always there, waiting for you to stop fighting. Surrender, in the end, isn't the end of anything. It's the beginning of everything. And still, something in you resists. A voice whispers that trusting is dangerous, that letting go means losing control. But what if it's the opposite? What if control is what makes you lose everything that matters? What if fear is the real thief of time? There's a place the mind can't reach, where only feeling has authority. And it's there, between fear and faith, that the new begins to be born. Then silence settles in, not as absence, but as presence. A silence that doesn't weigh, but welcomes. In it, the truths whispered along the journey finally find a home. You realize nothing needs to be proven, because everything already is. The search turns into understanding, fear into surrender, control into trust. There's a serenity that doesn't depend on answers, a certainty that comes from not knowing. What used to be anxiety is now space, and in that space, life breathes through you. The world hasn't changed, but the way you see it has. What once was struggle now feels like dance. Time stopped being an enemy and became a partner. What once consumed you now shapes you. You start to see that flow isn't a state to reach. It's a memory to recover. The soul always knew the way, but the mind had to get tired before it could finally listen. There's something sacred in that moment when you stop trying to understand life and start simply feeling it. The questions that once drove you lose their weight. They no longer need answers, because existence itself has become the answer. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to conquer the world, but as part of the very movement that creates it. And that realization isn't an ending, it's an opening. Surrender stops being an act and becomes a way of being. You no longer let go out of fear, but out of wisdom, because you've understood that everything real remains, even when what's apparent disappears. Now, life reveals itself in details you used to overlook: the sound of air, the touch of time, the lightness of being present. There's beauty in what once seemed ordinary. There's wholeness in what once felt empty. Every loss was simply a return to flow. Every pain, a reminder of your ability to feel. Everything that seemed distant now pulses within. The universe, once seen from the outside, now feels like an intimate reflection. You're no longer trying to decode the mystery. You've become part of it, and in the end, which isn't really an end, there's only an invitation. A silent invitation to keep walking, but differently, with more lightness, more listening, more trust in the unseen. The transformation didn't happen to you, it awakened within you. And that awakening is the real beginning. So if something inside you resonated, if this journey touched a place words can't explain, stay. Breathe it in. Share this vibration. Leave a sign in the comments, not as a reaction, but as a response to the call. Like, subscribe, and send this to someone still trying to control the uncontrollable. Because maybe what the world needs most right now isn't more answers, but more people who remember how to trust. And if a part of you still resists, look at it with tenderness. Because even fear, when seen with love, becomes a path. Life doesn't want to defeat you, it wants to dance with you. And every dance begins with one step of trust.